What's
Okay,
up with your hair?
I got a haircut.
You need to push it up a little bit in the front.
You need to push your face up.
More.
What?
It's just coming down a little low on your forehead.
That's how it is.
Okay, it's a little square. That's why.
Your face is square. For the record, I was late because I was making spam musubi and checking in for my flight. I was not pooping.
That's great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 38 of the Mom and Eric podcast. Now on TikTok,
Yeah.
Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. You can find us everywhere. And yeah, we're seeing some new eyeballs on TikTok, which is fun. Just some
Yeah.
random people outside of our friend groups.
hmm
So, yeah, check us out. But anyway, so today we are going to talk about the latest Paul Thomas Anderson movie, One Battle After Another. Even though we're going to spend most of the time on One Battle After Another, we're also going to talk a little bit about PTA, as I like to call him, although I don't think he likes to be called that. I think everyone says Paul Thomas Anderson, the full thing.
PTA is just easier to say though. I
Yeah,
wish.
PTA, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I saw you watch Boogie Nights yesterday,
hmm
and then I have seen Boogie Nights, and also I've seen Phantom Thread. So I have not seen what is considered to be one of his probably greatest movies, which is There Will Be Blood. There's been a lot written about Paul Thomas Anderson, the director and writer and producer. In the reviews of One Battle After Another, there's been a lot about him because he has a fairly reverential following, similar to Christopher Nolan. Some people say that his followers are even more reverential than Christopher Nolan's followers. They call them the film bros. But I will say that I actually think that PTA's followers are not as toxic as Christopher Nolan. So Christopher Nolan's followers would beat you up if you suggested that there was any that his Batman movies are not the most superior Batman movies, and I don't think that PTA's fans feel that way at all. But anyway, so let's get into the movie. And do you want to give the synopsis or should I?
No, you can. You can.
Okay.
I trust you.
All right. One battle after another. It's not an easy title. It does not roll off the
One
tongue.
battle after another.
Yes. It talks about
Pretty easy.
there's a character played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and he is caught up in this revolutionary resistance movement, sort of an independent fringe group where they do things like they stage assaults against the government, against forms of government, all sorts of different protests. They liberate immigrants or migrants who are being held at the border. So they do all kinds of what they call revolutionary activities. They're all pro-revolution. They're anarchists basically, but it's more like an organized revolution. I don't know what the right terminology is. But anyway, he and this woman played by Teyana Taylor, he's in love with her. So there's a romance way back when. But then she gets involved with this one military dude played by Sean Penn. And the military dude is very attracted to her and is quasi in love with her, although it's a very sort of toxic fascination. So he forces her into an affair. She then decides, and then she ends up betraying her fellow revolutionaries, and she goes into hiding. She escapes. And in the meantime, all the revolutionaries have to go on the run or go underground, and Leonardo DiCaprio is left to bring up his who he thinks is his daughter, who's played by Chase Infinity,
Yeah.
the actress Chase Infinity. And her name is Willa in the movie, if I recall
Mhm.
correctly. So anyway, so that's the plot. And then many years later, Sean Penn's character, Colonel Lockjaw, catches up with his trying to track them all down because he wants to join a white supremacist power group, and he wants to erase any evidence that he's ever had relations with a person of another race, most specifically a black person. So he chases down he's trying to chase down all the revolutionaries who can, give him up. And also he wants to trace this girl and figure out if she's actually his daughter or not. So that's the plot. There's that doesn't even do justice to the plot. It is a sprawling plot. It is a nearly 3 hour movie. And in watching it with Dad, we both agreed that it did not feel like it was 3 hours long at all.
No, it felt really fast.
Yeah, and it just felt like you were on the journey and you were just along for the ride. Like you
Yeah.
were just along for the ride. And it was very interesting in terms of pacing, as all of PTA's movies are. Just really, really interesting. I mean, and interesting in a way that I mean things speed up and then they slow down, and then they speed up and they slow down. And sometimes the
Yeah.
sped up things go on for a while, and then sometimes like it's kind of crazy how much he plays with pacing.
Yeah,
But
and so far with two, I've because I've only seen two movies of
yeah,
his now, and that was in the same week. But just from watching both of those movies, none of that time is wasted.
yes.
Everything is intentional, and nothing feels like we shouldn't be here, right
Yes.
now, or
Yeah.
we shouldn't be feeling this right now. Like it's very intentional, which I definitely appreciated.
Yes. So I want to hear your overall summation of what you thought of the movie and also what you think of PTA as a director and a writer. I do want to say though, in terms of that, going on and on, like the movies don't feel long and the intentionality of it. I read a lot of funny commentary that said that PTA doesn't seem to be able to. Um, he has such epic scale movies that so much happens in the movies, his movies, that he can't figure out a way to escape them other than to do some really unhinged set piece at the end.
Yeah,
And so that is very true of One Battle After Another. That's very true of Boogie Nights, you know? So it's basically like, I'm going to do the most unhinged escape like scene ever, or the way to get I'm just going to end this movie, but I'm not just going to let this movie peter out. I'm going to do something that's truly an unhinged spectacle. And I
yeah,
actually thought that that was a very, very funny point with respect to Boogie Nights and the cocaine den scene, and then with
yeah,
respect to the final car chase in One Battle After Another. But let me pause, take a breath, and let me hear. I'm actually dying to hear what you think of this, what you thought of One Battle After Another. As your
yeah.
very first, you're not a film bro, but as your very first Paul Thomas Anderson film, what'd you think?
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. We went and saw it at UCSB. They were doing a special screening at one of their theaters where they would screen the movie, and then the editor came and talked about working on the movie.
Oh,
Who
you had the
has
editor.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a great person to talk to.
Yeah, it was cool. And he has worked with Paul now for many years. He started on Licorice Pizza. I guess not many years. It's been a few years now that
Hmm.
well, he's worked with Paul for many years because he was an assistant for him before. But his first movie that he edited for him was Licorice Pizza. And which I still want to see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
and
just
he
outright loved it.
I loved it. Yeah, I gave it 4.5 on letterboxd with a like, because it's just like, I don't know, I didn't know what to expect. It was probably the most hyped movie in the last few years,
So
because
hyped.
all my friends gave it just glowing reviews,
It was
and
so hyped.
a lot of 5 stars. Yeah, and I was really excited because from the trailer I didn't really get like what this movie was gonna be. And honestly, it wasn't reading like it was gonna be that good. I feel like this is such an arbitrary comment, but like it was reading like a 3.5 star movie to me. But of course I don't know anything about Paul Thomas Anderson at that point, and like I just didn't know what the story was about. But so I really love going in completely blind, and you know just sitting in that theater, it just did not feel like a long movie, even though it was, and it felt like such a, what you said, like sprawling journey, that we were just along for the ride, and just everything technically, and performance wise, and just everything that went into this movie was really special, I think. And it definitely, I'll just say on the outset, like I think this is the best movie of the year so far. I would put
Wow.
it above Sinners. I would like to rewatch Sinners, but like I
That last third of Sinners really lets it down. It's the
right.
plot.
Well, no, not too much, but like it just like it wasn't fully for me. But this felt meticulously crafted, and so poignant for the topics it's like addressing. I can't even believe like the first scene they are going to it like an immigration like detention center, which is just so crazy that that's coming out like right now, like as you know, all this stuff with ICE is happening. And
There's a
even
lot of discourse actually about about what time the movie takes place in.
yeah, yeah, I know,
It's
like
intentionally confusing, actually.
yeah, and I like that because
Mhm.
obviously this shit has been going on for years. Like it's not
Right.
like just now this is happening, but it just
Right.
hits now because more people know about it or more people
Yes.
are being exposed to it.
Hmm.
And it's such a crushing aspect of our society right now, that you can't escape from, especially with social media. You just see it all
Yeah,
the time.
horrifying. It's
Yeah.
horrifying.
I mean, even in within the first minute, I was just like emotional because of that. Like, because I saw the shot of like the people in the cages, like obviously very metaphorical, and then the music. It was like I I am very I've recently become very interested in just how you open a movie. Like you don't want to just be like, this is the opening. Like, this is a movie you're about to enter, you know, it's so cool. Like, and you know, opening shots and all this stuff. Like you start
Yeah.
with Tayana's character, I forgot her name. But like, you know,
Perfidia, Beverly
Perfidia.
Hills.
Yes. Um,
Perfidia, Beverly Hills.
yeah. And you know, we start with her and then the music is swelling and it just felt like, oh my God, I'm getting ready for this big experience. And yeah, I just like can see defending like everything about this movie. I had some personal qualms with like how it ended. That was kind of my main um point of contention, but like it's the movie and some people, you know, love it, some people don't, you know. But I think overall it was just super good. So I
Yeah.
really loved it.
Yeah. So I don't know if you noticed, but I also gave it 4.5 stars, but I did not like it.
Yes, I noticed that. I was like
You
very
did.
proud of you, honestly, for using the functions of the new
The
age app.
letterbox.
Letterbox. Yeah, yeah. Very cool.
Okay, it's like okay, boomer.
Yeah. But cool.
Um,
And I would love
um,
to hear your explanation on that.
Yes, I will. I've been thinking about this a lot,
Yeah.
especially in relation to Paul Thomas Anderson. It's fascinating to me. So I actually think that I would go back and change that, not like to a like, because I think that in general I also saw Phantom Thread. So of the three movies that I've seen of PTAs, I mean, I've seen a lot of scenes of There Will Be Blood. I think that I like his movies much more in the rear view mirror. So I think that I like his movies so much more when I think about them afterwards and when I can appreciate them more. And the reason why I cannot love them in the moment, even though I completely appreciate the technical aspects, I think the writing is amazing. I think the pacing is amazing. And I also think that he's very inventive in terms of how he sort of keeps the momentum going, you know? And so but during his movies, and this is true of all three that I've watched, I am in a constant state of heightened anxiety. So I'm in such a state of anxiety. And I never know, it feels like something's going to explode right in front of me, or something's going to like there's going to be like a jump of some kind. And that has to do with the atmosphere and the tension that he creates. It's actually like a very masterful thing that he does. So
Yeah.
the anxiety, obviously it came to a head in a movie like Boogie Nights, when he's going downhill and then he ends up in a cocaine den. It definitely, comes up with the whole sort of extended chase thing, and it gets drawn out. He's masterful at maintaining that tension, but it's
Yeah.
not an enjoyable state to be in. Like I'm constantly like it's like constantly being in this fight or flight mode, when you're watching a movie. So, as a perfect example of this, the sequence where Benicio del Toro, Leonardo DiCaprio's cannot remember the password and he's trying to charge his phone,
Yeah.
and Benicio is trying to round up everyone to escape, from the federal agents. And he's so relaxed and cool. And meanwhile, Leonardo DiCaprio is screaming at that guy for like not for making him remember the password.
Hmm.
That scene is when I think back on it, I laugh out loud because that is exquisite comedy, right? That
Yeah.
is like
That was
tension
the
of
funniest scene for me.
yes, that is the tension of the opposites. Like it even has so many deliberately, intentionally comic moments, like when Benicio's rooting around underneath the bed for his gun, and you see like a shot of his like butt, like trying to punch under, like hump under further
Yeah.
to
Or
get
when
under
he's
the
like
bed.
he's arrested by the cops and he like backs up and he does a little
Yeah.
twirl or
Yeah.
a curtsy. Yeah.
Yes. And then also he's, when he's saying, "Okay, I think it's time to go," and then he's like grabbing Modelo beers and stuff like that. And he's like,
Yeah.
"Hey," I think he's like, but in the meantime, like Leonard, like Fred, I think that's his name in the modern sense. Fred is working himself up to more and more of a fever pitch and then when he screams, "I'm a guy who fried his brains with drugs," and I can't remember these passwords. So anyway, I guess it's so interesting to me. Like, I don't know how to. This is, by the way, true of Phantom Thread, and this is also true of Boogie Nights. And I cannot. It's so funny because there's a part of me that gets really wistful about this, about being in the state of anxiety. Oh, the other part of the tension that I feel when I watch a PTA movie is that it has a lot of what I call the plot that is built on continual frustration. So, and actually, in an interview between PTA and Leonardo DiCaprio, they referenced a movie called Midnight Run, which is all about Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin taking a cross-country journey that's foiled by all these different obstacles and barriers. And Dad always likes to tease me because he knows it's like planes, trains, and automobiles. I hate movies where you're trying to get from point A to point Z, and all these things happen, and a lot of the things that happen are due to the character's stupidity or incompetence, and
Yeah.
so the combination of the plot of endless frustration, like Leonardo DiCaprio not being able to remember the password, and that the frustration, and then the anxiety that I feel like my nerves are so jangled during that entire movie, and then afterwards I think back to the movie and I think, oh, that was really sweet, actually. Oh, wait, this is a movie about a father who loves his daughter. Like, this is just a movie about a father who will do anything to save his daughter. Or
Hmm.
this is a movie about how everyone thinks that this is the central theme of the movie, how there needs to be new generations of people to take up the resistance fight. So everybody thinks that that is sort of that no matter what happens, no matter what the issue is, no matter what the horror is that's going on, you always need new blood and new leaders to join them, because the old ones the previous generations will always get old and tired, or will get hunted down and chased by the state. And so you definitely need, and so that last scene is supposed to be this scene of like hope, where she gets word and she runs out the door, And so anyway, I think I love PTA's movies so much in retrospect, but I do not enjoy watching. And I wish I could. I almost think that I should take like a Xanax before going into his movies, so that, and I could just sit there and be like, oh, wow, okay, this is like a tense car chase scene or whatever. But I will say though that I admire PTA enormously as a director. I admire him, and as a writer too. He writes his own films too. So that's my summation about why I didn't put that heart in, and I might fill in the heart later.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. I do see what you're saying about the anxiety. Um, and it just kind of keeps building and building like that's as the
Yes.
plot goes on.
Yes, that
But
final car chase scene, Eric, with the
yeah, yeah. Oh,
that was,
and
and then I'm
could
sitting in
see
the
where they were drawing it out too. It's
I'm
just
sitting
like
in the theater like this. I'm like in the audience, and I'm going like,
yeah,
oh my, oh my
that's
God.
funny. It's funny because I mean with One Battle After Another and Boogie Nights, I didn't feel anxious.
You didn't.
No, it was like you used a word earlier,
Did
wistful,
you
and I feel like what
did you feel anxious during Get Out?
well my first time watching it out, I mean I don't like horror, so obviously I was like going like this and it
Yeah.
was scary.
Yeah.
But it's not the same like the probably the biggest example of what you're talking about that I had an experience with was Whiplash.
Oh,
I think
interesting.
I think Whiplash was like like a burning anxiety like that just keeps like getting worse and worse and worse
Yeah.
as the movie goes on as Miles Teller's character gets further into insanity and you just see how fucking crazy J.K. Simmons' character is.
Yeah.
Um but the you used a word earlier which was wistful and like with PTA's movies
Yeah.
and I think that just takes over the anxiety because there's something about
Interesting.
his tone, the way the what music he uses specifically, and also what he lets his actors do that feels way more like humanistic and grounded so that I'm not like I'm not just focused on like how anxiety inducing it is. And I'm more focused on like how exciting it is, like, oh my God, what's the next thing that's going to happen? Um, and yeah, I think it's just the a difference in tone because with Whiplash, it's like I hate, both of those characters. Like they're both despicable people. Um, but like it's being stacked in a way that's like just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Just terribly beautiful. But PTA, it's just like let's have a little fun. Like let's like experiment a little. Like let's let this, draw out like we and it's like he's saying like we want to keep you on the edge of your seat and not like we want to make you feel uneasy. So
But to me, being on the edge of my seat means that I am uneasy. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it's like being on a roller coaster and never being
Yes,
able to get
yes.
off. Okay.
Yeah.
I love roller
Well,
coasters.
you're gonna get off though. It's a
Yeah.
movie, so it's gonna end. So that's what, I look forward to. But I get like being in that state of, constant peril.
Heightened anxiety.
Yeah.
Yes. So I will say though that when I think back, I think I want to go back to a point you just made, which is that the acting in all of PTA's movies is really unbelievable. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable, actually. And I was thinking about it because what's interesting to me about some movies, like, especially as other movies that I've seen, Phantom Thread and Boogie Nights, the acting is so straightforward. So the people utterly embody their characters. I've never seen such a great performance from Leonardo DiCaprio as this film. I think he is amazing in this film.
Yeah.
I don't like his personal life. I don't like his personal ratings. I also cannot stand Sean Penn. Both of them I think are like arrogant SOBs. And but although I think that Leo might be growing up a little bit. But anyway, but I think that they are both like masterful in this movie. And I think that Tiana Taylor and Regina Hall and Chase Infinity are all, I think everybody in this movie is so good. Like
Mm,
and the acting. So here's the thing that's interesting to me about the acting in all of his movies is that I think that people embody the characters so fully that you know who they are from the get-go. But what's
mm,
interesting is that what he shows is how these fully realized characters like keep on like bumping up against each other. And sometimes it's just like people in real life. Sometimes you meet somebody and you groove with them perfectly. You know, sometimes you just hit it off for a moment. And then sometimes you are constantly at right angles with somebody and you're never going to hit it off with them because of who they are, what they believe, or for whatever reason, you're just never going to hit it off. And
yeah.
so he comes up with all permutations about how human beings interact with each other that are so fascinating to me. Like, for example, the most obvious example being Sean Penn's character, who's a white supremacist and wants to be a part of this white power group, but is also so drawn to Perfidia's character. Like he's so fascinated with her and he's so attracted to her. That scene where he shows up when she's in witness protection and she's escaped by then. But that scene that he shows up, he pulls up in his car and he is carrying a bouquet of flowers is in my mind one of the most twisted examples of who his character is. Like he's got this look of utter hope on his face, like okay, maybe we can live happily ever after because I'm crazy about this woman and I'm drawn to her, even though I'm a white supremacist and I'm basically the KKK, so it's just so interesting to me. It actually shows to me, this is maybe too highfalutin of a reading of this. I've been thinking so much, there was so much commentary in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination and his murder, I should call it. And it was just, I think that PTA deals in the thing of like, when do you really believe in an ideology versus when are you just a person who's acting according to your impulses and beliefs? And so Benicio del Toro, his character is a perfect embodiment of that, by the way. He is acting according to his beliefs and values. He believes that people deserve a fair chance, but at the same time, he's also being who he is, which is a total cool cat guy, like just free yourself of fear, man. Just have a beer. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
so he shows he's the perfect balance, which I think that we are all striving for, by the way. I think this is a human condition. I think it is a human condition to figure out what do you believe? What ideology do you believe? What are your morals? What are your values? What are your beliefs? Versus what do you think and feel as a person? You know what I mean? Like, how do you interact? How do you go through life day by day? You know? And so I think that that tension is brilliantly demonstrated in one battle after another. Because Leonardo DiCaprio, from the get-go, his character was so inspired by the revolutionary fervor. He was being such a dork in the beginning where it was like, yeah, I blew up shit. You know what I mean? Like we freed those poor people, you know, at the border. But at the same time, he was, you know, totally heartbroken, you know, when Perfidia left him. And then later on, he just becomes this like burnt out, like drugged out, alcoholic guy. And yet, who he is as a person, he loves his daughter. You know what I mean? He gives his daughter's friends all this shit.
That's a really funny scene.
That's a really funny scene where they're going to a dance. What did he say to him? He was like something like, "I will kill you." Like,
I will like do whatever you do to her, I will do to you 10 times over or something like that.
it's just,
Yeah. And he just kept whispering things, but like trying to like look nice, but he obviously was giving them shit.
yes.
Um,
And then also
yeah.
he made her call back, "I love you" as a final word
Yeah,
before she got
yeah.
in the car and stuff.
Very aggressively.
Yes. So I actually, I think that I don't know if PTA himself would say this about his own movies because his movies are almost hard to pin down, but I myself think that they are the clash between what do you believe and value versus how do you move through the world? Who are you as a person on a very deep and personal level?
Mhm.
And I can go on about that, but I'll stop there. Do you have any reactions to
Yeah, I think
that?
Chase
Damn,
Infinity
Mom, that
was
was a lot.
probably no,
That was
no,
a lot, Mom.
it's fine. You know, you you think about themes and deeper meanings about stories, I think a lot more than I do. I'm focused solely on like what I enjoyed about it. So that's why I always appreciate when you kind of lay out like what this movie was trying to say. Um, in terms of what these actors brought to the characters that I liked the most um about that is I love Chase Infinity's character as the dog because you know they set up like it's like 30 minutes or something where you don't even meet their daughter yet. You
Yes.
know, it's
Yeah.
like uh it's just seeing what the revolution looks like and what they were doing before that got them into the mess that they're going to get in for that, which is
Yes.
the main subject of the movie. And somehow Willa just fits so perfectly in that because like because of what you said, you know, the overarching point about having to hand this off to our new generations to
Right.
carry on like the struggle. She just was able to balance all of those things so perfectly. On top of the fact
Yes.
that, you know, bad dad, you know, she had I mean, Leo is not a good dad, like honestly, like
Yeah. He was
because
a terrible dad.
yeah, and also
But she realized that he would do anything to get her
right,
back.
and he's the only person that she can trust.
Right.
And even when confronted with the fact that he's not even her real dad, like he's not her
Yes.
paternal father, she doesn't have time to struggle with that really,
Right.
like in the movie. But like she
Right.
doesn't have to because she
She
spent
doesn't have
all of her
to.
life with Leo, you know, or with Bob Ferguson. So it's just it's so that's why like I don't want to knock the ending, okay? Because like I love the I so I thought that the first half of the movie was just perfect. Like I just like I have zero issues with it. I loved the way everything was escalating and like I love
Yeah.
this the background and the setup and then I loved where we were like in the present of the movie, like what the conflict was. Because it was you know, because it could have gone like making some grand statements about whatever. But I think that's the thing about PTA is he seems to really care about just the characters and what they're going through.
Right.
So I don't want to knock the last half when it's kind of it's her it's Willa's show, like because she's the one that has to be on the run. I was totally expecting like Leo to come in and save the day, like you know, Dad, oh thank you, like I love you now, like you are my dad. But she doesn't need any of that. Like
Yeah.
she fucking takes care of business, okay? And that's cool. Um, so my issue with that was because, you know, all the characters were amazing. I loved how everybody was set up and introduced. Um, especially what's her name?
Regina Hall. Yeah.
Regina Hall. Like that was another side character I really appreciated because she
Yeah.
stepped in and just like this this is what we're doing right now. Like we have to get you to safety. Um, so that's why I just felt sad that like there wasn't like a culmination of like everybody, you know. There
Oh,
was
interesting.
so this is to the point of like what a revolution looks like, obviously. Like you'll just have helping hands along the way. And some people might get lost or die
Yeah.
along the way, and you just can't get that back. But it just felt like the way things were escalating in the movie, it was going to have a bit of a finish that you know would include all of these amazing characters and wrap things up. You know, I was saying to somebody like I just love movies that wrap things up. I don't care if it's like depressing, but if it feels complete, like we tied a knot, then like that's what really speaks to me. Um, but, you know, instead it was just kind of like we let things sit, you know, and we let things kind of just sort of play out, you know, and it's not that the chase scene at the end wasn't exciting or, you know,
Yeah.
wasn't um thrilling. It just felt like with all the moving elements of the first half, like the last half didn't feel like it measured up to that for me. And
That's so interesting that you like that so much. It's interesting because number one, we talked about this before with respect to Alexander Payne and the holdovers. Because I said that
right,
movies
yeah.
like Sideways and holdovers, they don't, he doesn't believe in wrapping things up either. Dad
Yeah.
was watching another movie of his, The Descendants, on TV the other day, and it just was such an Alexander Payne movie again. And um, I think that the not wrapping up is part of the point. I
Yeah, of
actually,
course.
I think it's part of the point. So it's interesting that you still yearn for that
Yeah.
in a Paul Thomas, but maybe you just maybe if you saw more of his movies, you wouldn't yearn for it as much. You
I
know
don't
what I
know. I
mean?
mean, I saw Boogie Nights and I sort of felt this same a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think I'm so glad you brought up Alexander Payne. That's a great comparison like because I don't know, I'm stupid. Like I want to feel like whole and complete at the end, you know? Whatever way that happens. And I did feel I mean I'm not detracting from how the one battle after another does that. Like something I really loved like was you know that we get back to home you know with Bob and Willa like they've gone through hell obviously
Yeah.
and then he reveals that he you know has this letter from Perfidia and she reads it which some, I went with one of my friends and she said that that was just like a kind of cliche sort of thing to have happen at the end like oh a letter like you read a letter and like it's from you know the character that's not there but
I
okay, hold
actually
on. So
okay.
that's I was watching her read the letter and I was like, okay, like looks like the movie's over now. We're done and I don't need to feel like super invested in this anymore. And then she finishes reading the letter and she immediately goes and hugs her dad and hugs Bob. And I like immediately just like emotions welled up. Like my tears were welling up. So I really love that they centered back on the father-daughter dynamic. There were just some things I just felt like we're missing. And also I didn't feel like we needed to resurrect Lockjaw for that last scene, and then he goes back and then he gets killed by the KKK. Like it felt like unnecessary time to him. And yeah, it just and that felt a little cliche.
I did not find the letter to be cliched. Um, I agree. I also felt that the lockjaw scene. Not. I well. Okay. Let me go back to why I didn't. I didn't think that the letter was cliched for the same point that I just made about the difference between about the tension between what you believe and value and what your morals are and ethics are versus what you feel and how you just move through every minute by minute. The reason is because Perfidia was meant to be all of PTA's characters actually are meant to be incredibly mixed bags of good and bad. And so Perfidia had a lot of issues. Like she had a lot of energy to put towards the revolution, but she didn't have clarity of her beliefs or what she was trying to achieve. She was very easily compromised and she this phrase is she got out too far over her own skis and was forced to like be a rat and give up her contemporary. She didn't want to be a mother, but that doesn't mean that she didn't have genuine feeling, you know? And so, so in other words, Chase Infinity's character, Willa's character, had learned that her mother was a rat and was really disappointed by that and was very, very disappointed by that. But then she decided to accept the letter for what it was. Do you know what I mean? She decided to accept it as genuine. And then she went out and she hugged her father, who was a shitty father, but who proved to be incredibly persistent in going after her and trying to save her life. And so I guess my point is that that to me is a really powerful point, especially now. It's a really powerful point about what you as a human being choose to accept in the ones that you actually love or are close to. Do you choose to accept only the good parts? Do you choose to overlook the bad parts? Or do you choose to see them as a whole, like as a mixed bundle, you know, and say, I can love this person or I can feel love or accept love for this person as genuine while also recognizing that they were extraordinarily flawed. That is probably one of the hardest challenges of any human being has to face is trying to love somebody and accept them, accept their flaws. It's what we feel about our family members who drive us crazy, you know, where we have deep love for them, but they also drive us crazy. It's also like part of the interesting discourse today. So many people are saying, you know, that we have to find a path to forgive people who voted for Trump, you know. And Dad and I have had lots of discussions about this. Like, what are the shades of gray in the people who voted for Trump? Are there the people who were genuinely ignorant of the harm that he was going to cause, or genuinely misled by the lies that they fed, versus the actual hardcore, I want to be evil and round up people and I want to hoard all the wealth for myself. You know what I mean? So these are really hard conversations, and I think that their characters in the movie are alluding to that conversation. The lockjaw thing, I agree that I too was like, when I saw him walking down the road all bloody, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. And then I laughed when in the scenes after because he was still trying to make a bid for it, even though he was so pathetic and so like, his story was so pathetic and unconvincing, you know? So I knew that what was going to happen was going to happen. I knew it. I felt like it was really foretold in that meeting where he was making up these ridiculous lies. I will say, though, that in terms of the unnecessary elements of Lockjaw's resurrection or near death. Did you hear the famous story about PTA? There's a really famous anecdote where he was going to NYU for film school for a grad program, and his very first class, one of it, like in the first 2 weeks that he was there, the professor said to the class, I hope you guys don't think that you're gonna leave this program and think that you're only gonna make that your aim in life is to make Terminator 2, you know, the sequel to Terminator. Because, you know, the professor was basically saying, I need you to make better art than that, you know, like you can't make the Terminator 2, you have to make like better movies than that. And PTA had this moment in the classroom. He's talked about this in interviews where he was just like, I love Terminator 2. I loved it. I love movies. And he goes, anytime I go to put on a movie, I want it to be one of those action adventure, really exciting spectacle movies. So I honestly think that Lockjaw getting resurrected was literally like PTA saying that's the moment where the Terminator like starts crawling again, you know, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna find a way to like finish him off.
Yeah.
So that's
And
like it's so funny to me that he keeps on. Number one, I'm so sympathetic to that, as
yeah.
you know, but I just think it's so funny that he's just gonna keep this going because he can.
Yeah, and I actually don't. That's not the issue that I have with like Lockjaw getting resurrected. Like, because
hmm
it is a fun moment. It's like when we saw that shot of him walking down the street, everybody was like, "Oh my God!" Like, I can't
Yeah,
believe he
yeah,
survived
yeah.
that. Which is such a great, that's such a great communal experience. And it is like Terminator. That's a great
Yes.
comparison. My issue was like what followed, and it was also uh, a little evident in like that in these last chases of the last third of the movie. What you just said, like the Terminator crawls out, like well, but then there's like a battle after where they try to kill him, but Lockjaw instead like goes back to the KKK, and then they just kill him
It's
discreet.
the Christmas Adventurers Club,
Whatever.
by the way.
Yes, I'm just gonna call it the KKK because even though
That's
that
what
is
they are.
funny. Um, like they just kill him discreetly, and it's just like he's over and done with. Like it didn't feel like a rising, like kind of like that's how he's
It
gonna
wasn't
end. Even
cathartic. It wasn't
yeah, it
cathartic.
wasn't cathartic, and I know that's on purpose, but they had already kind of did that when he was shot in the car. So
Yeah.
you might as well, like, if you're gonna resurrect him, then fucking do something about it, you know? And then, also Bob, like in this whole time when Will is running and like trying to get away and Bob is trying to find her, like I just felt like Bob was kind of aimlessly driving around places. Like he saw Lockjaw and all this stuff, and that comparatively just wasn't as exciting as like Willa getting away from all these people. Like, I don't know. So I'm gonna bring up tropes right now. Like, here's what I was expecting because I was like at the time when
By the way,
um
maybe if your expectations were subverted, that is actually a sign of like genius that your
yeah,
expectations were
and
good.
that's why I would defend Paul Thomas Anderson's choices. Like I would defend, like, because that is like, because people like
He needs that from you.
wholeheartedly think that's perfect. Yeah. But I'm saying for me, you know what I mean?
You me.
Um, like here's what I was expecting. I was expecting like um when Bob was rescued from the jail, like that, and they were gonna go and rescue Willow. Like there would be some scene where like they lay siege on the church, that they're in. There's a little bit of that, like they're like Willow's getting away and like Bob snipes the church. And yeah, but that's like that would be one of those like crashing kind of like finales, where it would the sprawling, conflict of like the first half of the movie where like Bob is running and like from the police from the military and like they're trying to catch him. Like I thought there was going to be that, but for the church, and I guess there was a little bit, but it just didn't feel like it was carrying as much with Bob, kind of aimlessly trying to look for Willa, and then Lockjaw getting resurrected, and then just kind of falling flat a little bit. Another thing that I would have expected is like a scene of like the new revolutionaries or whoever's going to be leading the charge now. Like finding these motherfucking KKK members and like, you know, getting them like or beating them, And I know that's not realistic. It's just like that would be exciting and that would like be just like this like finish, And that's what I loved about Sinners was like the KKK members came back and then they were just annihilated. And that was like satisfying, So I guess I'm like
Yes.
selfishly wanting catharsis,
You
through
have you have a huge desire for poetic justice.
yeah, yeah.
And it's actually kind of consistent, and it goes back to our conversation about the Equalizer movies too.
Yeah.
You have, and also John Wick. You
Yeah.
have you like to see the bad guys just you like to see them scraped on somebody's boots, like ground into
Yeah.
dust. Yeah.
Yeah, because it feels right. But it's also like
But
if yeah,
you will defend Paul Thomas Anderson for not going that way.
yeah, of course. And I know also because I've been told this is based on a book.
It's
And
very loosely based on
oh,
a
Lucy, okay,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. I just like don't know how faithful this story is to that, And if like there's obviously a lot of different things with trying to respect an original story and staying true to what that was saying. In that case it's just not what I want.
You
So,
know, I have to make a few comments about the book that it was based on because I tried to read it and I couldn't. I think it's really interesting that a director and a writer like Paul Thomas Anderson, who's got these kind of pop culture sensibilities, as he admitted, with his love of action adventure movies, and he loves, the Terminator. He loves the Terminator too. And so he was I mean, he quit film school based on his professor's comment. He was like, why wouldn't you want to make a sequel to Terminator 2? And he quit film school, by the way,
oh, I
too.
didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, he quit after that class. That's the thing that made him quit film school after like 3 weeks.
Ugh.
So I think it's so interesting that he'll take these very abstract novels where so many people were like fawning over these authors in the 90s and calling them literary geniuses. Like they were calling them literary geniuses, and I hated them for a lack of characterization, right? And so now he tries to bring, I do think he tries to breathe as much life into his characters as possible. So that's why they say it's very loosely based on um on the novel Vineland because he did something completely different with it, you know, and he does it through his directing and his writing, by the way. But the other thing that he does is that his parts are always so incredibly cast, you know, like so well cast. Every single performance in One Battle After Another was just mind blowing. It was so good. Like the performance was so good. And actually, Esquire did a sit down interview with Paul Thomas Anderson, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Paul Thomas Anderson, they were supposed to Q&A each other. And he said, you know, Esquire wants me to ask you if there's any roles that you ever regret missing out on, you know? And Leonardo DiCaprio said, yeah, I really had serious regrets about turning down Boogie Nights, you know? Because but then when I saw it, he said, I can't imagine anyone other than Mark Wahlberg in that part because he was so good in that part. He fits so perfectly into that part. He said, I can't even picture like how I would have played it or how I would have done it any better than he did, you know? And so I think that Paul Thomas Anderson can take a very abstract basis and then I think he can build story and plot and people so that they feel recognizable. That's a feat of acting, that's a feat of directing, that's a feat of writing, you know? And so I think that in many ways he's just incredibly skilled. Would I call him a genius? I don't know. The only reason
Yeah.
I wouldn't call him a genius is because I don't find watching his movies to be these triumphant emotional experiences, you know, like they're just I don't know that well okay. I might call him a genius, but he's not personal to me. He
Yeah.
he
I actually think
his
I
movies
actually
are
think Steven Soderbergh is like kind of similar. Like, or I
yes.
think they're both
It's a great
similar.
comparison.
Like,
Yes.
cause, or I mean, at least how we talk about their movies, like they're very
Yes.
just well crafted, but they don't
Yes.
like kind of reach beyond like the that
Yes. Yeah,
for us.
I don't feel deeply invested at this deep like soul emotional level, but I am so full of admiration. And then also the more I think about it in retrospect, the more I think, God, that was actually a really great movie. That was a really, really great movie. It's
Yeah.
so interesting because I saw Phantom Thread in the theaters and I saw it during what was a difficult time with Grandma and Grandpa. And I had taken Grandma to see a movie when she was staying with us for a week during that really difficult time in 2018. And number one, Grandma fell asleep halfway through that movie, Phantom Thread, and then she woke up afterwards and she said in her inimitable Grandma way, she goes, that movie is weird. She was like, it's deeply, deeply weird.
Yeah.
And so, but then on YouTube the other day, I caught, because I had been watching interviews about One Battle After Another. On YouTube the other day, I caught a scene from Phantom Thread, and the scene was astonishing in how well constructed it was. It's a scene where Daniel Day-Lewis's character meets the quote unquote love interest in the movie for the first time. And after having seen the whole movie, that scene gets invested with so much more significance. So that is actually what leads me to another point about Paul Thomas Anderson. I think his movies are great for rewatches because I think that he makes you think about them afterwards so that when you go
Yeah.
back, you actually see them in a different, like you see different shades and nuances that you did not see, especially me, because I was so freaking clutched up with anxiety. But I think if I watched it before, if I watch it again, knowing what happens, I think, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
like a really good example of the relationship here, you
When I
know?
got back, I was saying I was really excited to just see it again. Like I want to go see it again in theaters. And I felt the same way about Get Out too. And that was before I really was getting deep into because I was in theaters. I saw it and I saw the Grandma
Yeah.
Grandpa. But which is
That's
but
weird.
that was before
That's
I
another
really
by the way, for our listeners, that's the other grandparents.
yeah, yeah. That was before I really got into like too analytical about my movies,
Yeah.
and how I watch them. But it's the repeat viewings of Get Out that make me love it more and more and more and more as I get deeper into like how it's crafted. Similarly to Get Out, I wanted to talk about was just like a resurgence in movies now of concocting what these freak white people are doing, like racist white people are doing it's like
I didn't think
there's
about that, but that's a great
it's
point.
crazy. Like Get Out was like, okay, we're zombifying black people, and then Midsommar was like cult, European shit, like uh, so weird. And then
What are the white people getting up
yeah, yeah.
to?
And in this movie, it was like I just thought it was so perfectly written. Those conversations with those members, and
Yes.
then I
You know what made
specifically,
it so perfectly written is that they were
mm,
so exquisitely polite to each other.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like they
They
were
were
so like gracious and friendly and polite when talking about the most evil shit ever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And they were also using like crazy terminology.
Yes.
The Christmas stuff or like um, just like things that like are code like they seem like they're secret code. And it perfectly contrasts with the revolutionaries because the KKK members are like you could see they're just lame, fucking old, like, white, losers versus the revolutionaries where it's like we're a family, like we're there for each other and it's
Right.
fun. Like they have way more fun. I loved, being with those people more than I loved with, being with the racists. Which is funny that because I was making that distinction. But those scenes with those KKK members, like they were saying such ridiculous shit that like a large amount of people were laughing, during those scenes.
Yeah.
Um, but I did not have that experience at all. I think it was because, well, obviously some things they said were funny. Like it's just like the Christmas fucking shit is hilarious. But
Yeah.
like, but they're talking about, you know,
Genocide.
horrible, genocidal shit that
Yeah.
actually like this is it feels accurate. Like I mean, people be saying this behind closed doors,
Yes.
So
Yeah.
with that and they would say shit like half breed, which is just a crazy term to
Yes,
use.
and uh, this actually a more innocuous example, but it's a great example also of white privilege and that they sound so sane and reasonable
Yeah.
when they're saying it, even when they're saying such horrible things. It's like that joke that people always make when they say to British people that just because you have a British accent, you sound so much more intelligent, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
So this whole idea about how much so many of us have internalized white privilege to
yeah,
the extent that these men look like CEOs, so we automatically think in our heads, oh, they look like CEOs, they look like generals, they look like the leaders of companies.
yeah,
When in reality, they're like Hitler. You know what I
yeah,
mean? They're like
exactly.
Hitler. So
So,
you're sitting there going, what the hell? You
yeah,
know?
and this might be like my singular woke perspective, but I just didn't like connect with how people like found those scenes so funny, like
Yeah.
uh and I get it because again, they were saying crazy shit and to them it is crazy, but to me it's just accurate and it's just like, depressing to what like these white supremacists will do and say,
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a really interesting experience, but I'm so glad they were painted in that light and they were juxtaposed with the revolutionaries. And I just want to make a point where if Sean Penn, Lockjaw, if he's the only character that somehow gets an Oscar out of all this, then I'm gonna be pissed because everybody will say that he deserves an Oscar, which he does. He delivered a great performance, but it's one of those like SNL like Creed skit. You
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that
yeah,
one
yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
Rocky gets the Oscar over Michael B.
Yes.
Jordan. Like
Yeah.
I would give it to the other actors a million times over, like
Yeah.
Chase Infinity or Leo or I mean even Leo. And that's sucks for people playing, racist or bigots. But it's just that I just want to make a point where it's like what is this movie really about? And I feel like there's a lot of people this movie is very popular and a lot of people are watching it. Are we all watching the same movie? Like are we all getting the same
We are not.
messages from no. I mean so it's
Yes.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that is super interesting. So we should wrap up in terms of talking about the Oscars, and it actually relates back to an earlier comment you made, which is that you think you would pick this movie over Sinners, you
Yeah, I
know?
would. Yeah.
So there's a big question about whether Sinners is going to keep some type of momentum going for the Best Picture race. Everybody has been raving about this film. And then there's a ton of films that are coming out of, the film festival season, like Hamnet, for example, by Chloe Zhao, who has won Best Director before. And so there are some critics who have said, for Vulture wrote a really interesting piece on why Paul Thomas Anderson has never won an Oscar. And there are all sorts of reasons, but including the year in which they were competing and like what kinds of movies they were competing, what he was competing against. And also the fact that a movie like Boogie Nights will never play the same way with, do you know what I mean? Like it won't
Yes.
resonate with Academy voters
Hey,
the
hot
same way.
stuff. Hey, oh, you're 17? Come on in. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, let's get you
exactly.
in the porn business.
That's right. It's about the porn industry,
You and
right?
Roller Girl, you guys should just fuck right now. I'm so shocked that you actually told me I had to watch this. I was like watching this, I was like, is this the right movie that she recommended to me? But I mean, I got it at the end. It was very good. But yeah.
It's a really good movie. It's
Hmm.
it,
It
it
is.
yeah.
That
Uh
I was sorry, but the cocaine den scene, it's
yeah.
just one of the funniest things I've seen in a while. Like I was
Yes.
laughing my ass off. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, well, favorite film critic Sarah says that she thinks that Paul Thomas Anderson doesn't have a thesis, that he just likes to show all these different aspects of American life, like what is it like to, and all the fucked up bits of being in America, like the
Yeah.
porn industry, capitalist greed, and there will be blood. You know what I mean? Like she just likes to, she said that there's no clear theme, so Academy voters will go for a movie like Oppenheimer. That's the no-brainer, big important historical subject, you know what I mean, like big and
Yeah.
like world changing event, right? Or they'll do something like, oh, white man black man relationship, like Green Book or whatever. And so there's a lot of times that it will reward a movie like that. And
Yeah.
so it's interesting, but this year so number one, a lot of people feel that One Battle After Another is his best shot at getting an Oscar. Maybe not for Best Picture, but definitely for Best Director. So it's interesting because I would not be able to if I were to choose between Ryan Coogler and Paul Thomas Anderson, I'd have a really tough time choosing between
I
the
would
two.
choose Ryan Coogler. If it were
I
Best Director, I would choose Ryan
Interesting,
Coogler.
interesting. Okay, so
Because you can't get more personal than that, you know?
yeah, yeah,
And that's what we were saying. I feel like PTA was lacking. So,
yeah.
if we're going off if we're going off the films, I just prefer one battle after another. But directing wise, like Ryan Coogler all the way.
That's interesting. So one battle after another, a lot of the critics are saying that it's got to be his year because this is his most sentimental film.
Yeah.
So even though we keep on talking about Sinners as
Yeah.
Ryan Coogler's like most personal film, right? They think that this is Paul Thomas Anderson's most sentimental film, which I actually agree with that. I do think that that whole thing with the father-daughter relationship, and all that, I think that that is true. And so Oscar race this year, it always shapes up to who's in which category. So Best Actor is insanely crowded,
Yeah.
insanely crowded. And like Michael Jordan is in there, with a twin performance, right? And Best Supporting Actor is a little bit less crowded. So unfortunately, your Sean Penn fears could come true, although Sean Penn
Yeah.
already has Best Actor Oscars. He's just a powerhouse of an actor. In his younger years, also he was just so unbelievably wonderful. I hate what he's become, like that he's become this sort of caricature of himself. But he was in his first breakout role was in Racing with the Moon. He's just been in so many great films. And so he's amazing in all of his films. That's the thing. So Leo would be in Best Actor, insanely crowded character. He's not campaigning for himself, by the way. Everybody noticed how much Leo was campaigning for Lily Gladstone in now that movie escapes me. Flowers Moon, Killers of the
Killers of the
Flowers
Flower Moon.
Moon. Yeah. Everyone Killers of the
4 hour
Flower.
movie, which I haven't
Yeah.
seen.
Everyone was noticing how much Leonardo DiCaprio was campaigning for Lily Gladstone in that campaign, and now he's really trying to put the actresses front and center. So he's really campaigning for Teyana, for Chase Infinity, for Regina
Let's go,
Hall.
King. Let's
Yeah, I
go.
know. But
Good on you.
yes, but the thing is for the
Or does he have a
studio.
gun to his head? You better fucking don't be campaigning for yourself.
But for the
Yeah.
studio budget, by the way, but from a both voting perspective, Eric, and also for a studio budget perspective in terms of who you put the money into for a campaign, you putting them in all three is pretty rough. So everybody's betting that it's going to be Tayana and Chase and not Regina because Regina's part was so much
Yeah,
smaller,
she's yeah, tiny.
And everybody thinks that if it goes to the two of them, to Chase and to Teyana Taylor, that it's likely to be Chase because the Academy loves those young ingenues, those young actresses who in those categories. So anyway,
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting that that you would totally vote for Ryan Coogler over Paul Thomas Anderson directing, but you would then vote for. I wish you remember the Academy, but you would vote for One Battle After Another over Sinners for Best Picture. That is it. That is an important distinction, by the way. And I really wish that more Academy voters would think about
Would
that.
think
Do you know what I
about.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But
And
they're
and
not. It's just like it's kind of vibes, which
yes.
and that's why the campaigns are so important, I guess.
Yes,
So
it is vibes. It's how many eyeballs do you actually get? And then also, what are you really rewarding here? And also, did you even watch the damn
yeah,
movies?
yeah,
That was the thing, which is that last year the Academy really cracked down because they were like, we know you're not fucking watching all these movies. Watch the movies, Otherwise, these votes just don't mean that much. But they do mean a ton in terms of commercial success. And none of PTA's movies have been big money makers, by the way. Like
mm.
Sinners is a big money maker, but One Battle After Another is not. Well, it's actually doing well compared to his other movies.
Oh,
Sorry.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I'm shocked because everybody's talking about it,
It's
but
his
maybe it's
most
just
ex
my film circle.
Yeah, it's his most expensive movie. It's his biggest budget spectacle, but it's had a respectable few opening weekends. But a movie only does really great box office if it has legs that people go back or tons of people
Yeah,
keep on seeing it through the weekends.
yeah, and
So,
the runtime is just gonna scare people off anyway. Like
yeah.
even if you tell them it doesn't feel that way,
Yeah.
that's just a one of those things now.
Yeah.
So,
So, Dad is such a huge Benicio del Toro fan.
mm.
And he's also probably a Paul Thomas Anderson film. He actually thinks that Boogie Nights, he said, was like he thinks is a near perfect movie. So he likes
Oh
Boogie
wow,
Nights better than One Battle After Another, although he is liking One Battle After Another more in retrospect. Again, it's a movie that makes you think more and more.
yeah,
So I'm really glad that we decided to focus on it because
yeah,
I will not go running to see a PTA movie, but I think he's worth seeing. So in other words, like I'm excited to see it in the same way that I'm excited to see some films, but I still think he's very worth seeing. Like, I think that people should go see his movies
yeah.
because I think that they are meaningful in a way that maybe he doesn't even intend them to be this meaningful. I think he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to tell a story and I'm going to put it out there.
Yeah, I want to watch more of his movies. I don't know. Like I know There Will Be Blood is supposed to be kind of darker, right? It's like a or more dramatic. Um,
Yeah.
but like because the thing I liked about both of these movies I watched was its wistfulness and one thing I forgot to mention about One Battle After Another was how much I loved the music and the soundtrack.
You know
Because
what's funny? Yeah, go on.
well, I just like, but in both movies, there's just like long stretches. There's not only long takes and long scenes and like where you just see something kind of unfolding, but the music will carry throughout that whole thing. Like, and I expected Boogie Nights to be more like Saturday Night Fever. I don't know Saturday. I haven't seen that either. But like I thought it was gonna be like kind of groovy and fun. It was not that. But it was but the music like was juxtaposing with that a lot. And the music was kind of hip and cool.
Yeah.
But in one battle after another, I really just loved all the choices. When Dirty Work, Steely Dan came on, I was like, oh my God, this is. And then the song they play when he gets rescued from the jail, like soundtrack wise, just I loved. And then I loved the music of the whole scene where Bob is running from the police and then gets arrested. Like uh, from start to finish, they played that
Yeah.
same piano track, and it reminded me, funny enough, of you've watched me play this game, but Legend of Zelda: Breath of the
Uh-huh.
Wild.
Yeah.
That game like minimally doesn't have that much music, but because it's supposed to make you feel like you're in the wild and you're like adventuring into nature, right? But like when you are like running on a horse, like it'll have like little piano notes like
Yeah, 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 yeah,
and
yeah.
then like but it was like that but for the whole it must have been 30 minutes or so of just that music and I kept checking. I was kind of checking with myself, like, do I think this is annoying? Do I think I was like, no, I fucking love this. This is awesome. So, and it just
That's
kept
so
going.
funny you say that. Do you want to know what it's I kept on checking with myself about whether or not that piano music was annoying.
Yeah.
And I had a moment when the piano music was going on and it was very plinkety plink plink plink.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, because it was actually during a quiet moment in the apartment, you know? And so I was saying to myself, listen, Minna. I was really bothered by the music not stopping during Thunderbolts because I
Mm.
felt like I felt like it was lazy when
Yeah.
I felt like it was substituting for not great storytelling. Do you know what I mean? And so I told you that I was annoyed that Thunderbolts would not shut off the music.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then in one battle after another, when the plinkety plink 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 kept on going on and on and on, and then it kept on changing volume, I was
Yeah.
like, "This is really annoying." And then I said, why did I hate this so much in Thunderbolts, and I don't hate it now?" And I was like, "Oh, I get it because I'm supposed to be annoyed right now. Like I'm supposed to be like getting wound up." So
Hmm.
it was definitely it was enhancing the anxiety that I was feeling during those sequences, you
He also
know?
knows how to use silence well. Like there are
Yes,
just so many great moments of silence. I think,
that's right.
and I
If
and
he
I
had not had those moments of silence, I would have been so pissed at it the
yeah.
same way that I was at Thunderbolts.
And even though I was sort of dogging on the ending, like I do love that it was just kind of quiet when, she gets ready to just shoot that member that's after her. Like it's just like she's just getting ready and it's like you're fully immersed in that scene. So I think it's totally just him knowing when to play music or not.
Yes, how funny he does it in unexpected ways.
Hmm.
I think he is really good. Paul Thomas Anderson is really good at subverting expectations. So he was like, I'll do the plinkety plank thing. I'll stick in a funny song. That song during the cocaine den scene in Boogie Nights is hilarious, you know? It's hilarious because you're like listening to this what is sort of this soothing and in the meantime there's this like
I
snap
was
crack.
laughing every time the poppers were going off because they reacted every single time. And it was so funny. And it was just so nonchalant. And the
I think the
music, like,
song is I think this
Jesse's
is
girl. Pah! It's like, whoa. Oh my
I thought it was
God.
Sister Christian. Was it Sister Christian? Sister Christian?
There was
I
a
thought
bunch
that
of
was.
songs. I didn't
Oh,
recognize
okay.
most of them, but Jesse's girl. Um,
But
yeah,
anyway, I think that he's really good at subverting expectations, of putting music in to lend atmosphere. The
yeah.
other funny thing about subverting expectations is that that rooftop chase was hilarious
He's where
because
he's chasing after the kids. Like,
yeah, it's so like it's so exciting and fluid and balletic. They're just leaping so at and then in the back of your mind you're thinking, Leo's not in shape to like his character's not in shape to do
no.
this. What's he? And then you hear his like increasingly labor breathing, and then it ends with just like a thud. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It ends just like him plopping and falling
yeah.
on the ground and being arrested. And then when Benicio says, what happened?" They're like, he fell and he fell into a tree and then he got arrested."
Yeah, there were so many things about his character that were so fleshed out, like the fact that he
Yes,
was like a washed up revolutionary,
yes.
but still cares about his daughter. Like the
His plaid
editor,
bathrobe, by the way,
yeah, that he wore like the whole time.
the whole time, and Dad has a plaid bathrobe like
Yeah,
that. So I was saying to Dad that he should go as Fred for
yeah.
Halloween because
Oh,
he totally
you
has
mean
that
Bob?
whole Bob.
Yeah,
That's
Bob.
right, Bob. Yeah,
Yeah. No,
his
that would
name
be
was
Bob
his name,
Ferguson.
yeah, his name was Pat originally. Sorry, I get them
Oh,
somehow
really?
mixed up. Yeah, it was Pat
Okay.
something.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's funny. And he yeah, and he's like a stoner too. The editor of the movie said that they were debating whether or not to keep that one scene where he goes and talks to the teacher in or not because they didn't know if it just like was shoehorned in or if it like was useful. But I love that scene so much. I think it's so funny, but like I just immediately understood after seeing the whole lead up, like with like this is what the revolution is. It's this big, you know, huge thing that like was big for Bob back in the day. It's just and now it's over. Like and just seeing him break down immediately when she started describing that Willa was like just excelling at everything, it's just like, oh fuck, my baby, it's so funny. Yeah. So comedy was really great in this film, and same with Boogie Nights too. Um,
Yeah.
And just going back to the Soderbergh comparison, like
Yeah.
so it's kind of funny because I feel like they have, for me, like opposite issues, not issues, but like things about their films. Like I feel like Soderbergh's stories are better like crafted and wrapped up in things
Hmm.
versus but his characters might lack a little personal
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then PTA, I'm like I have some issues with like the story and like how things wrap up and stuff, but I love the characters, and the characters are
Yeah.
what carries the movie. I would say like one over the other, I'd give it to PTA, but just because the characters I think make the story more and make you more emotionally invested. But
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Philip Seymour Hoffman had a great character in Boogie Nights, didn't he?
He
But there's a
just
little.
upstages everybody in any movie he's in. He just upstages everybody. It's crazy. Um and it was
Just the
such
way
a
he's
little
like
part too.
smiling the whole time, like just like
Yeah, yeah.
rubbing his stomach. It was just so funny.
He was good. Yeah.
Anyway, all right. I'm really glad that we got to see this movie and we did it for this episode. This was a great one to focus on. I have a feeling that, I mean, the rest of October, November, and December are going to be major, major Oscar bait movies, and so
That's great.
we'll see. We will see which ones we have the like. Not a lot of them I'm gonna have the appetite to see just because they look so difficult, and I'm not always in the mood for a difficult movie. So I'll be interested to see what type of traction, for example, like Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson are in a new movie called Die My Love. The trailer just came out.
Wow.
Rose
I don't
Rose
remember.
Yeah, Rose Byrne is in a movie. It's something like I Can't Stop Kicking You or something like that. But
The
anyway,
only one I can think of is Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which I saw the
yeah.
trailer for, and I don't know if that's something I would enjoy at all,
Yeah.
just
Did you
from the
see that? You've
trailer.
never seen The Shape of Water, right?
No, I still haven't.
Oh,
It's
you
been
should see The
yeah,
Shape of Water.
I
Yeah.
know. I was just thinking about that.
Actually, if you end up watching Frankenstein, you should watch. We should always we don't have to focus on the movie, but you need to have like one others of the
Yeah,
director to for
I agree.
comparison. Yeah.
I mean, I'm really
You
glad I saw
agree.
Boogie Nights. Yeah,
I
Boogie Nights was not at all
agree.
what I expected, and it just gave me a better sense of who he is as a director.
Yes, that's right. All right.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun as usual. And nothing more to say. I love you, Eric.
Love you too. Thanks so much.